Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tula Community Podcast. I remembered to say it that time, so congratulations to me, and I can give myself a little pat on the back for remembering to introduce the podcast in a professional way. now, this episode, the way it came to be, I do talk about it in my conversation with Aaliya right at the beginning of this episode. So I'm not going to repeat how I got to connect with her and how I know her or anything like that. I'm not going to bore you with the same story twice. So you'll just have to wait a little moment before you discover the story on how I started practicing with her. What I will say is that I did attend her classes a good amount of times at the North Shore Elements Y Yoga here in North Vancouver some years ago now, and then I reconnected with her recently, going to the same studio, and I missed her classes quite a lot. And I do really love being in her class and the way that she guides and leads the session. So that's all I can give you. That's all I can give you without being too repetitive. But I will share with you some information and some things about Aaliya here and her bio. Aaliya is a Vancouver-based yoga instructor, having studied in the birthplace of yoga, India. Her classes integrate traditional foundations of the practice with a digestible approach to ancient teachings. It is the fusion of East and West that provides students with a whole and integrative experience. With over a decade of experience in the industry, you can expect a practice with Aaliya to weave traditional philosophy, mythology, mantra, and classical teachings in a way that relates to our modern living. Aaliya hopes to offer a gateway of understanding and self-discovery to the universal human experience. It is with passion for the yuj, or union, that's the root word of yoga if you didn't know, of all of the parts of yoga practice that truly provides what she shares with her students. I will link information for Aaliya below, as you know, her website, her socials, all of those things if you would like to attend her class, if what she shares in this episode resonates with you and you connect with it. I would recommend taking her class. I really do enjoy the class. And my next share with you is, I know that if you've been listening for a little while, you'll know that I had shared that I was happy to receive our third and final sponsor. Now we did talk about that in one of the episodes. I don't remember what episode it was, but I received a connection to another wonderful company. And I was happy that I had 3 total sponsors. But then recently, through a beautiful unfolding of a story, I had gotten my picture taken by Sarah Sovereign, which we did an episode with back last spring. If you haven't listened to that episode, she shares such beauty in that session. But she had taken my photo this summer, and when she sent me the photos, she shared with me that if I wanted to get any prints of the photos, that I could use this company called Artifact Uprising. And so I looked into them because I thought, oh, okay, maybe I don't know if I'll do that, but I'm curious about the company. So I went to the website, and then I ended up ordering prints of my own photos that I sell in person in Vancouver now, from the company. And I liked them. I appreciated the ways that they came, and I decided to ask them if I could partner with them or be an affiliate with them, because I feel the same as Sarah. When I send the photos from my sessions to you all, I sometimes know and I want you to have either prints of them, or you might want to create something out of them. I know so many of you will send them to your family, to your parents, to your partner, to your, like, to whatever, and so maybe you want to create like a print of a nice photo that we took together of yourself. And so they agreed to partner with me. They agreed. And so I'm going to link down below. So this partnership works a little differently than some partnerships. A lot of them just work with an affiliate code. You have a code and you input it, and then that connects it to me, and that's a good way to support creators and to support me is by using the code. But this one is a little different. So you have to use the link below, or I've linked this in like my Instagram bio if you ever lose it or anything like that. But you have to shop through that link and check out through that link in order for it to be something that supports Tula and supports me. Now, you can use any code on their website. It doesn't matter what code you use. They often have different promotions on their website. So any code will do. As long as you shop through the link, then that's great. If there is not a code available on their website, you're welcome to use Tula15. I will also put that in the description of the episode so that you can at least receive some savings, of course, if there's nothing that they have going on at the time. So that's Artifact Uprising. And yeah, I feel really happy about that. That feels good. Now that's enough, right? That's I'm gonna come to you in a few months and be like, guess what? I have a fifth partner. But for now, this feels I feel good. Like I feel good about this. And yeah. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And I hope that you enjoyed this session that I recorded with Aaliya. And I hope to hear from you soon. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm here sharing this space with Aaliya, who will introduce herself very shortly, of course, and tell us all about herself. And we'll talk all things yoga and practice and spirituality and whatever else comes up, obviously. But I'll give you a bit of backstory on how I got connected with you. Now, this would have been 2018 for me. Was the first time I attended one of your classes at Y Yoga. Yeah, and I, at the time, was living in New Zealand, and I came back to Vancouver because my dad was very sick in the hospital, and he was like put into like a coma and like all this stuff. And I was staying at his house when I came back just temporarily, and I needed yoga. I wasn't even really I wasn't a teacher or anything at that point. I was just like practicing, and I needed something with structure, something with, practice, something to get me moving and out of the mind and all these different things. And I attended your class, and I came to this class, and it wasn't very long into the class where I was like, I like this class. I like her. I like this teacher. Like, I like what we're doing here, and it meant so much to me. And I've never told you that, of course, because we haven't talked a lot, but your class has always meant more to me than any of the other classes there because of the emotional connection that I have to that time of my life. And then coming to your class and going through that time and, hearing your voice and your style of teaching and all these things. And not only was going through this time where I was going to your class, but I liked it too. So it has all of these aspects to it where it meant so much to me, so thank you for that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow, you really kept that one in the back pocket.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Like 2018. Ooh,
yeah, long time.
Okay.
And so please, of course, yes, introduce yourself.
Hi.
And maybe even had you just started teaching there, at that time? What? Yeah.
Okay, so hi, I'm Aaliya. I teach yoga. And in 2018, I had been teaching there for probably a year and a half, about there. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't been teaching that long. I had done my teacher training in 2016, early that year, and basically started teaching at Y Yoga in the fall of 2016. So a very quick turnaround from being a student to being a teacher.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. At a busy studio too. Mm-hmm. Overall, I feel like the classes are always full, and lots happening there.
Yes.
Yeah. And you'd been practicing for a short amount of time or a long amount of time already before when you got your teacher training?
So I started practicing in high school. I was a very awkward teenager. I went to a private Catholic school, and I did not really relate to a lot of sports. I didn't play a lot of sports. As a kid, I did Taekwondo. I actually have a black belt in Taekwondo. Weird fact about me. But in my early teenage years, I was not a volleyball girl. I was not a basketball girl. None of those things.
A Taekwondo girl.
Taekwondo girl.
Also something you kept in the back pocket.
So I walked my little uniform self down to a studio that no longer exists called Yogapod. Shout out Yogapod. And I took a class there, and it was very awkward. It was very strange and unusual for me, but something in me was like, I got to keep doing this. And so I continued to practice through the latter years of high school, and then in university, the beginning of university, I was working at Starbucks and I hated my job. And so I was looking around at places that were hiring, and Y Yoga was hiring for front desk. So I jumped on that offer and just went with it and took a job there at the front desk. And so I was practicing a ton when I first started working there. And it was about 2 or 3 years into working there that I went and did my teacher training.
Right. And
Yes.
you did it with them?
I did not.
Okay.
Along that time, I had a bit of an early 20s crisis. I was, I think, 22, 23, kind of like, what am I doing with my life? I'm in university, but none of this means anything.
You were in school for what? What was the thing?
I was in school for criminology, which I do really love, and I wish I completed it. I did go back a little bit during COVID, but I still just, I don't know. This is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was, 22, 23. Some things had happened in my life. My parents had moved away for that time, and I was feeling really isolated and disconnected. And I realized that growing up in North America, I was not connected to my roots whatsoever. So I dropped out of university, I bought a backpack, and I went to India.
As the story goes. you hear this so much, and it means so much to all of us that have done that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And so you went?
I went, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
I tell the story sometimes in class, and I don't start it with that, but I just remember.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Welcome, class. Today's theme is what the fuck.
I hadn't really traveled, let alone solo travel, and I told my parents that I was doing this, and they were extremely confused. They're like, we've worked so hard to give you a life that you don't have to go there. Why do you want to go there?
Yeah.
But growing up in North Vancouver, there wasn't a lot of an Indian community. I was not very connected to my roots. And so I flew to India. I was standing on the edge of a suspension bridge with my backpack. And I was looking around, and there was like two-way traffic of scooters and monkeys and cows and pilgrims. And the taxi driver was like, yeah, you just crossed the bridge and your ashram's on the other side. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so I tell the story that I was wearing this mala and I was chanting to Shiva, and I was like, Shiva, just give me the strength to cross this bridge. Like, please just like get me to the other side. And so I'm just saying that internally, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna look kind of down at the suspension bridge and not around and just get across. And I got across the bridge, and then I look up, and there's this giant statue of Shiva that I didn't know was gonna be there, and I was like, haha, okay, universe, like, got it. I'm where I need to be.
Yeah.
So yes, that's where the journey of becoming a teacher started.
And what, because I'm always very curious about people that have gone to India and spent some time there. And was that in Rishikesh? Like, where was that?
It was, yes.
And so what, for you, what did that time do with you, for you? Like, what did you gain from that time?
Totally. Good question.
I think it's a lot that shifts for everyone that does that and goes there, you know?
I think the heart of it is the discipline. You're really day in and day out. And I'm not throwing shade on the way that the system is here to go and do a teacher training, but you go and spend a few hours in a class and then you go right back to your life. Whereas in India, you're sort of in this cohort of people from all around the world. You're disciplined from the morning to the evening doing these things, and then you go back and you're by yourself. You're in your little room in the ashram, or you're in your little hotel room that they put you up in, and you really detach yourself from your typical day-to-day life. You're not on your phone, you're not doing these things, you're fully immersed in this experience. And I think it is extremely transformative when you just submit to it.
And are you allowed to be on your phone, or is this also like an aspect of just or do you not want to be?
I
like,
mean,
is there
you are
some of
allowed
that?
to be. I just have like a few pictures here and there from like our graduation and stuff like that. But it wasn't in 2016. First of all, I think that was like the emergence of Instagram. I don't think it was a huge thing
true.
then.
Yeah.
And also, Wi-Fi connection was not that great. We're in a totally different time zone. So even if you're talking to your friend, you won't hear from them till
The next day anyway, or whatever. Yeah.
So you'd kind of shoot your family or your friends like, hey, I'm doing great. Like, this is really amazing. But really it was like down to connecting with the people that were directly around you and going through this experience together.
And that's something I find that practice does for us and with us, and following these lineages, but also the discipline that you want to, of course, be very present. And I don't really know for you, but sometimes when I think about going somewhere like that, or being in a training, I just want to be with the self. Like, I don't want any sort of conversation with my family. I don't really want to talk to my friends too much, not from a negative place. It's just kind of like, I don't know, you're doing this thing for yourself. Like,
Totally.
You finally made it there. You crossed the
Yes.
rickety bridge, like, you're there.
Why not be selfish in the most positively transformative way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you were there for how long was that?
So my training was just over a month, and then I decided to stay for an additional 2 months. I was meant to go back after my training, and I just wasn't ready. So I stayed longer. I was studying harmonium with a old man in his house on the side of the Ganga, and he had like all his students that were like his devotees almost, that were around him, and I was there just learning from him. Every day I would walk there, and then it got really, really hot, so I went up to Dharamsala, which is where the Dalai Lama people are, and that was really, really cool. That was an interesting experience. It was like a whole different India. The thing about India is that because it's so large, and because there are so many different cultures and communities within it, it's so vastly different, even from small town to small town, but even from a short bus ride or train ride. So even that was a different experience of going into self.
And did you find that from place to place, does it shift in? Because I think that I would imagine that Rishikesh feels very potent, like in spiritual energy, I guess. Yeah. Does that shift as you travel around?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's other extremely potently spiritual places, but then there's places that, like Dharamsala, for example, which is up even higher in the Himalayas. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's got this buzz that is very like Buddhist and very simple. Whereas Rishikesh is robust. It's devotees from all parts of India. It's people from the Western world. It's this cacophony of sound and craziness. Whereas the top of the mountains is like you can hear your breath.
Yeah. So it shifts.
Oh, it shifts.
And then when you came home, is that transition strange?
Oh my God.
Because that's something I like feel like every time I've gone somewhere, when I get back, I'm like, fuck.
Yes. And it's so something that I can relate with people when they say like, oh, I just got back from this big trip and now I'm back home, and I'm like, okay, you got the post-trip blues. Like, you are feeling like right back where you started, and you're like, ugh, like my life is the same, the people around me are the same, everything is the same, but I'm not. And yes, I definitely had that moment. And that was sort of my push to go and start teaching. And I was just like, I need to just get out there and I need to do it.
And because were you like, of course you're passionate, you're interested in this, but you're also trying to, in a way, are you trying to maybe hold on to some of that, what you experienced too? Like, you're taking all of this stuff that you just learned and you want to put it out there, or you're just feeling like motivated and excited and passionate?
So when I initially did my teacher training, it wasn't for the purpose of going flat out to teach. I was kind of just like curious and loved the practice and wanted to go to India and like be in my culture. And then when I stayed after my training, the people that were sort of at the ashram that were kind of organizing it had asked me to do some public classes.
Yeah, okay.
And I was kind of like, a what? I've never taught before.
Yeah.
But it was then that I was like, oh, like this clicks, this feels right. And so when I came back, I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to open that door.
Yeah.
Not with the expectation of making it my full life career, but like right here, right now in those moments, that's what suited. That's what I needed.
And you came back to Y Yoga and they allowed you to teach kind of right away?
No.
No.
No. I first started teaching at Ma Yoga in Deep Cove.
Nice. Okay.
And beautiful space, kind of opened me up to the potential of being able to teach a lot, refine my practice. And then with Y Yoga, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they have an audition process.
Yes, I have heard of this. Yeah, because I wanted to teach there, and then I heard about that, and it didn't make me feel hesitant. I just like knew that existed. Basically,
Yes.
I was like, okay, we gotta take some time now. Yeah.
Yes. So right when I got back, I got thrown into an audition, bombed. Just
Really?
did terrible. I was
what happened?
stressed.
Like, what was the thing? Were you nervous, obviously?
Nervous. Yes.
And what did you, like, in your mind, did you mess up your words? Did you mess up, like, your sequence? Like, what? And how long is the audition? Was it, like, 30 minutes?
No, it's like 5.
So not
and
only
I think
did I mess
that
up,
combined pressure, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in that mindset of comparing myself to others.
Yeah.
And so other people started, and I'm like, oh, damn, they're good. And so I got so in my head and so flustered that I just totally royally bombed.
So were you in a place of you were witnessing other people and whatever their language was or their their verbiage or whatever, you're like, oh, that's good. I wish I could say, or like, I'm not gonna say that, and then you get all psyched out in your head a little bit.
I was psyched. Yeah. I was totally psyched.
So you gotta go in, I think, like focus. You gotta be like I feel like you gotta like almost put into these situations blinders on, and just like almost don't even listen to what they're saying. Sometimes I've done that before, where I just try to tune out, so I can stay focused on like what I'm gonna do,
Yes.
But it does psych you out.
So then shortly after that horrible audition, there was a Y Yoga hot training. Now, in that time, it was an in-person training, and one of my all-time favorite teachers was running it. And I remember we were sitting down as a group, and she was like, basically go in a circle and say something that you're insecure about. And I was like, I'm 23, 24. I don't think people are going to take me seriously. And she just looked at me and said, you're 23, 24? I'm like, yeah. She's like, no, you're not. And from there, I just like, I don't know what it is. She almost like gave me a little bit of confidence, a little bit of pull. So after that training, I got put into another audition and then nailed it, was fine. By the end of the year, I was a Y Yoga teacher.
Amazing. So she gave you the confidence, I guess.
She did.
She supported you to feel like comfortable in the self. And then you were maybe, I guess, enough. Like there was nothing.
She held that mirror that I was like, so I think we briefly touched on this before we started recording, but it comes down to our egos and like what our ego how our ego drives us, rather, when we're disconnected or not grounded or all those things. Like, what is the ego message to you? And for me, my ego has always been to minimize myself.
Right. And this comes from a place, I guess maybe deep rooted in you or something from youth. Like it just happened.
Yeah.
That's how you were made to feel about yourself, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just something that it exists for you already.
It just exists. Yeah. So.
And so you minimized yourself, and so she supported you to find that.
Totally.
And then from then on, would that have been? You said 2017 is when you started teaching there?
End of 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I did my training in April, came back, had that summer audition that was awful, did a hot training in September, and then by November I was teaching in the full swing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And which classes do you teach there? Because I've only attended, I think, just Y Hot of yours.
Yeah. So I teach Y Hot, I teach flow, and I teach power, and I teach hatha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, because there's a lot of things I like about your teachings and your classes, and I want to highlight those in this time together. Yeah, of course, because Something that I like in you and in a teacher is not only a presence, but like a confidence to command the room or command the person, the body, the whatever they're going through, to give it a theme, to give it something there, that there's like intention, there's purpose, and you do have a strong presence in the class. And I do feel that you're leading us, or at least me, of course, in this great direction. And so there's like a confidence there. And now that I know more about you, like I wouldn't have really known that you have done things where you've more like played small, or like thought, I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought that naturally you would have always just been this confident, like powerful, strong voice person.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how much we as individuals internalize things, and like how much this practice is transformative for us. I've probably always been like a strong speaker or a strong presence, but that's what the external world sees. But my internal world can be very, very different. But when it comes to holding space and command, I feel like I myself as a student really appreciate that. I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to question. I want someone to direct me in a way that I'm going through this experience for a reason, for purpose. So that's definitely like the anchor to which I try to teach by, whether it's on a specific theme or a specific mudra or a specific philosophy or something. There has to be that anchoring point that is of intention.
And that comes through strong, and I've never felt that your teaching or your theme has wavered during the class, you know, because sometimes I feel like people kind of start with a theme and then it shifts a little bit as it like moves along, which is fine. Like sometimes you're just kind of spitballing and it just goes like that, but you always have carried through the theme strongly, start to finish. It like comes through so many times, you know. You'll be like suffering and like Virabhadrasana too, and then you're like, and then you like remind me, and I'm like, yeah. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
Like, I got this.
That's something that's so important. It's like if you show up with a theme, stick to it.
Yes. Yeah. You can. I don't want to bounce around different things too much. You know. You don't want to like start on peace and then end on like, I don't know, truth or something. Even though I guess maybe you could. Like you could connect them or something like that. But
it also keeps it simple. Like I feel like when you're a new teacher, it's almost like you want to show everyone what's in your toolkit.
Yeah.
You're like, I have this toolkit. I'm worthy of being listened to. Like.
And you just learned all this stuff.
You learned all this stuff.
Yeah, you know, like I remember that too, because I had, when I first started teaching, I used to write down on like a piece of paper, like a lined piece of paper. I had this book that I would write my sequence down on, and then I would maybe also write like the theme or what I wanted to talk about. And that went well because at least I had something to refer to. I could like look at the paper and be like, okay, we're going from this shape to this shape, whatever, you know. And I remember for some of the classes that felt bigger to me, like I had subbed at One Yoga, and I remember like the first class I think that I subbed there, I made this whole list. And then I also wrote all the theme, but also like a bunch of shit that I wanted to say, like quotes and whatever. I did so bad because I just like...
Were you relying on the paper? Like were you...
I was relying on the paper.
Okay.
And I wanted to get all of these quotes in. Like I wanted to get all of these sayings and all of these teachings, all of this... Like it was still connected to the same theme. I just wanted to make sure that I said this powerful quote.
Hit all those points.
I did. I wanted to. And it just was like awful. Like it was so choppy, and like I knew it was like similar to your audition. I was like, I really fucked this up. Like I just felt like I bombed, you know? I was like, man, like I didn't leave it feeling good because I not only was not simple, but I wasn't allowing it to just come out.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Because sometimes, I don't often always now go into a class to teach with a theme. I sometimes actually just think of the theme maybe on the way there sometimes. I'm just like, well, what does today feel like to me?
Totally.
What does it feel like? Today feels a little bit, you know, like I was, I don't know, I've been really hard on myself, and how could I be softer with myself? So I guess the theme has to be compassion. Because I found that for the most part, when I'm feeling something, usually the collective is feeling a lot of that.
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm like, so when you are teaching from intuition or from somewhere that you are, how often do you get that sort of feedback of, wow, that's really what I needed, or wow, like I feel like you're speaking to me in the room?
Yes, I get that all the time, and like I wonder about that too in my teachings, because I think that maybe people are annoyed or bored with me or something like that, whatever, and that's the own doubt creeping in. And they're like, no, I always feel like you're talking like right to me, like, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, good. I'm glad that you do, because I don't know, you're in front of this room of people. It's freaky sometimes,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know if you still have it, because I get this little thing where when I walk into the room to teach, and I go and sit, at the front, let's just say, and all these people are looking at you, and then all of a sudden I get this tiny little message in my head that says, okay, oh shit, I'm the one that has to speak now. And if I don't do anything, nothing happens in this class. Like, I'm the one all of a sudden that, like, all of the responsibility is on for 60 minutes.
Damn, I've never really
had that.
I mean, no, I have moments where I
hope you don't now.
I'm like sitting facing them, and there's like 40 something people looking at you.
Yeah.
And I try and do a little icebreaker. I try and engage, try and make them laugh very like naturally. I don't come in like prepared with like a
joke.
With a joke. Let me consult my joke book. No, there's none of that. We don't have that.
I hope to see the next class.
It's not in the budget. But
we are yoga teachers in Vancouver. It is not in the budget.
Yeah, I try and do something to kind of lighten the mood, because there are so many people there that are just sitting there waiting for you to start. But yeah, I don't know. I try and just like detach from it a little bit. And it's not like in a sense of not being present, but I try and detach from this idea of like, I'm here to guide them, because in so many ways they're guiding me.
Right.
Like, I don't come in with this huge game plan of class. I don't come in with like, we're going here and there, and this has to be the transition and this and that. I teach to the bodies in the room. Mm-hmm. And that's just always how I've been from the beginning. And like, I have some teacher friends that we joke about, because they're like, did you wing that one? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. And it's not coming from a place of lack of care or lack of wanting to be prepared.
And that's something I was worried about when I stopped doing the paper. I thought that I all of a sudden would seem like I don't give a shit. That I was like, I lacked planning and intention, So mm-hmm. I agree with you. It doesn't come from a lack of care.
It comes from being really, really dialed and present with the bodies in the room and detaching from this thing of like, it's me. It's I'm the guide. I'm the this. It's like, okay, if you are going to connect to every body in the room, what if you just watched? What if rather than coming in with what that teacher wants to teach and prove, you just showed up for the people that are there? Mm-hmm. And I think I would attribute that way and style and method of teaching to, why I have such an incredible community.
Right. And I found that when I allowed it to be intuitively led and from maybe the room and just being present, that those were some of the best classes that I either got feedback from or they felt good in me. Because you know how it is sometimes. You leave a class that you don't feel like you did a good job of the teaching or something like that you feel like, you're like, man, like, I don't think that
you get your lefts and rights mixed up.
Yeah,
you're kind of
like
you're fumbling on your words.
Yeah, I've definitely said some stuff where I just am like, oh my god, it sounds so stupid. Like, and so it happens. But then when I let go of all of that plan, it got exponentially better because I was just allowing it to be what it was for that moment, And yeah, I feel like that's like obviously such a beautiful thing. And another thing that I really like about your classes is that, and we talked about this when I got here, but I find another thing that kept me coming back. And, for the longest time, like before I had done my teacher training, in full transparency, I had already been practicing for maybe 9 years, let's just say, but I really didn't understand. I didn't know about the sutras. I was really like only fitness based, I guess. Like I was just physical for 9 years in yoga. I wasn't even aware of anything. Like I knew maybe Om because I feel like that's like there all the time, but that's about it. And then once I had finished teacher training, I connected to a whole different aspect, of course, of yoga and lineage of yoga, and like now what I look for in a class, what I look for in a teacher. And it was another thing that I valued in your classes was that you were talking about the lineage, the philosophies, you know, the stories, the oral tradition of yoga, and I feel like you see it, but you don't always see it, you know. And so I was hoping you would tell us some nice some stories here, you know, something about how that came to be and why you feel like you want to honor that in your classes.
So for the longest time, the actual practice of yoga was only offered to a small group of people, typically male. And in India, they have a system known as the caste system, which for the most part dictates where people stand in status in society. And for a lot of people in India, the practice of yoga was not accessible to them. And so for me, the fact that now in this day and age, everyone has access to it, maybe not being able to go to the fanciest, nicest studio, but in the sense of you can go on YouTube, you can go to a gym, you can go to a rec center. Like, the practice has been so opened up. It's not just for men. It's actually quite female dominated in this day and age. Yeah. So did I answer your question, or did I just go on a full different tilt?
I think you're going to get there.
Okay.
I think that, you know what, you're good. I mean, you're good. Anything you want to say, you know? Yeah.
So that's part of the thing that has inspired me to keep oral tradition alive. And also, when I went to India, there was so much more about the why of these shapes and the stories behind these shapes, rather than like solely where your knee should be in line with your ankle or where your shoulder should be. Like, people of course had very strong practices, but there was another layer to it. And I think it's important to note that yoga isn't just asana, and that yoga is all these different paths to the same place. And just because you don't have strong shoulders or you have tight hips doesn't mean that you can't access the potency or the wisdom of these shapes where your body is in that place.
Yeah. And do you practice any of the other paths of yoga? Like, are you primarily in the place of, you know, not just asana-based yoga, but like in the Raja yoga path? Or do you also, like you said that you were learning harmonium, or you did learn harmonium, so did you follow Bhakti path as well? Do you feel like you don't stick with it? Because I don't ever stick with the path personally. I'm not one of those. Like, some people are like that. When they're like, I do this path. I'm like, I do everything.
I do everything. I'm so like that. And I let the practice complement or enhance where I am in life. Mm-hmm. So for a long time, yes, I was doing mantra. I was doing a ton of mantra. Almost every class, I would lug my freaking harmonium with me to class. Because that's where I was in that place, and that's what felt authentic. And now I'm maybe in a little bit more of a place where I'm teaching, mythological stories, or I'm in a place where I'm teaching a little bit more of like a very digestible Sparks Notes philosophy. Mm-hmm. Once again, it's all about accessing it and meeting people where they are. If they want to go on retreat, we're gonna do some shit. Yeah, we're gonna go a bit deeper. Work through. Yeah. But if we're meeting in an hour at a public class, I'm only gonna put forward so much, and it's always take it or leave it. Some people will love it and kind of want to dive in more, and some people are like, oh, like that's kind of weird. I've never had to like om for 8 counts and all above each other and then silence. I'm like, well, that's a sea of ohms, hun. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And the silence matters. And the silence matters. It's like part of it, and I think that's an aspect too people forget that, or they don't know. Yeah, which is fine. Like, you don't have to know it, whatever, you know. But sometimes I find that too, that people like get just kind of like, what's going on? I'm like, no, but this is literally part of the symbol itself. There is a little place for silence, you know.
Exactly.
And so
when I was a kid going to India, I was in elementary school, and I was out shopping with my mom and my aunt, and this is in South India in Bangalore, where some of my family lives. And we were out at the store, and I was like, Mom, why does everything say 30 on it? Why is there 30s everywhere?
My mom one time, she did the same. She had a shirt. She's like, it says 30. Like, and I was like, Mom, no.
And so that was the age that I think I was probably like, I want to say between 10 and 12, where I learned the ohm sign. Thankfully.
Like just staying 30 apparently.
Like, why is everything marked 30?
Yeah. I guess you're not alone on that.
No.
I think that happens to a lot of people, obviously, you know. There was something I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, sorry. My cat's
no,
meowing
it's okay.
At you.
No, it's fine. It's very cute, which helps a lot, you know. I was going to ask you if there's any poses or, you know, shapes people get into that you feel have any sort of misconceptions behind them, or if you could tell us the story of some of those shapes, some of those poses of the asana, you know, like, is there a story that you could tell of them?
Well, I think a good one, because it's just people are so familiar with it, is dancer's pose. And I think a lot of people, dating back to sort of that Bikram style practice, they want to bring their entire body fully like parallel to the ground.
Foot up behind the head.
And like arms straight and forward and down.
Yes.
But the actual shape is based on the Nataraja, which is the dance of Shiva, the dance of life, of ecstasy, of liberation. And it's said that the standing foot is symbolic of overcoming ignorance, as Shiva dances on that demon of ignorance, so that you can gaze upward towards pure consciousness, this leveled, elevated sense. And as that happens, like, you're supposed to be raising your heart, raising your eyes, reaching upward towards that goal of liberation and freedom, rather than seeing your toes behind your head and your chest parallel to the ground.
Right. And so when you teach us, like, you always, because I can't really look up that well in that pose. It's hard because I lose my balance when I look up.
Especially if you're in the mirror, or like in front of the mirror.
You're like in front of the mirror. And it's like, I feel like the ceiling's like way too right there, you know? Whereas if I was back a little bit, looking forward, it'd be a little bit more accessible. But up to me is like this, you know? So I'm like, whoa, you know? And, but is that why you ask us or like instruct us to look
upward? Yes. Upward. Yeah. Same as the idea of like your drishti, your gaze, like your eyes, and the connection energetically of upward is so much, I guess, more in the subtle body sense of teaching, or subtle body sense of practice. So, even then, so like, imagine if you were not super physically strong in your practice. Maybe you're new, maybe you're injured, but if you just stood there and like zipped your knees together, held your foot, you could still look up. You could still get that benefit. You could still feel that strength of, I'm rooted in my standing foot, I'm lifting my heart. That's enough.
And I think that is extremely important to connect with and to share and to teach from, because I think, of course, we know that this yoga misconception of like being able to be fit and do all the shapes and you have to look this way, and you like, that's so popular. We already like, we know that so much. And I always try to teach from a place of whatever, you know, like whatever it is, like if you can, you can. If it's not working a little bit the way you feel or think it's will, that's okay too. And like, what can you make it so that you're, you know, because you could gain the same understanding. Like if this person still is holding on to their foot and they're on one leg, but they're not tilting forward, and they're not, you know, they're not the toes behind the head, but they're looking up. Like, are you still balancing? Yeah. You know, like, are you still like rooted and present in the space? Yeah. Like, are you breathing? Yeah.
Are you working? Yeah.
Like, are you hearing this energy? Like, because I have quite a few friends that sometimes they don't even really want to practice asana and stuff like that, you know. They just want to be in the room, you know. They just want to share the space. Do you want to deal with the?
I just feel bad. Yeah.
Oh no, wait. The cat has treats. Finding treats. Simba. Oh my gosh, so sweet. Yeah, no
Want to be on the
treats for
podcast?
you. Yeah, do you want to be? Well, he is now. He's on the podcast. Cute. But they're just so good. How could I not have the treats?
Chicken.
Anyways, yes, I have quite a few friends that they just want to be in the energy. They don't even really care. Like, I have a friend that she just likes to lay there. Like, she doesn't really want to do many of the poses and stuff like that. And it's not my class that I'm not teaching. I'm just also on the mat side, whatever, But she just wants to lay there and, like, just listen to the
Soak
teachings.
it in. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool. I always feel like it's something I say a lot is that I really, when I'm teaching, I really appreciate when people in the class, they just do what they want. When they, like, I like when they follow, there's an intention there too. But if the class is a little bit more, like, relaxed and, they want to find, of course, they maybe want a little child's pose, maybe they need an extra little cobra shape, like, whatever it is. Go and do those things, like you can.
I feel
find
like there's
things.
a balance between that though.
Yes.
Because I get a little bit irritated, and I think it comes from sort of my old school, like the way that I was taught is that you respect what your teacher is offering you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am a student and sure I'm capable of doing these crazy things, but my teacher is offering this thing, like take what you're being offered.
Right.
There's so much this like push to go farther, or this push to show that you're capable of these things, and it deters from the actual intention of the practice.
So you find like when people push too much to be like in a place of like maybe showing off or like ego, like they're going too far instead of like pulling back.
Yeah, it's like I appreciate the people that are doing less than doing more.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah, of course.
I know that sounds like a little bit weird, but it's just like it takes away from the meditative aspect of it, and it gets right, like you said, right back into the ego, right back into your brain, right? Yeah. And for sure there should be elements in practice where there is some freedom, there is some self-led or intuition based.
Yeah, because I feel sometimes people some shapes like they don't feel great for that person.
Totally.
So then yes, they pull back.
Yeah.
And I find like the pull back, I think that what happens a lot of the time is the push, like the one that's operating from the external like ego, like, oh, look how good I am, I'm the only one doing this thing in this class, whatever, is much more likely to break or kind of ruin or challenge the energy in the room.
Absolutely. That's
versus
one
the
thing.
Pullback.
That's one thing that really that's a huge point. It's like it deters from the essence or the energy that's trying to be created in a space because this person wants to flow on their own. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why come to a public class where you have someone that's holding and conducting a space for you when you want to do your own damn thing? Mm-hmm. Like home practice. Yeah,
and I think that's where that shifts for people when they get to this point where now, because I've heard from so many people as well, teachers, that of course in their own physical practice they felt like they were past what was offered to them publicly, that they couldn't find a class that was keeping up with where they were. And I'm like, well, yeah, exactly. I feel like that's where you needed to now find another teacher.
Exactly.
Or you need to find just your own practice, because I think if you're like advanced enough in those like harder shapes, let's just say, whatever, that you could probably figure them out by yourself at home too now. Yes. Like you're there. You're not like been to one class and now don't know how to self-guide at home.
And like just because you can do this crazy, I don't know, peacock posture doesn't mean that you're done with the practice. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're really far in an asana stance, but what if you paused and took a look back and was like, okay, I'm going to focus on pranayama, mm-hmm. or I'm going to focus on a meditative,
a new challenge.
Yeah, like there's so much being offered in the class that is beyond the physical practice, and sure, you might be quite advanced physically, but what if you checked in on the other mm-hmm. limbs? Mm-hmm. That's just what I'm saying. Like, for those people that are like, oh, like public class isn't giving me any challenge. It's like, I think you're avoiding the challenge because you're going into your wheelhouse, your comfort zone, which is being able to pop into a press handstand. Yeah. But you're not checking on your mind.
Right. Or slowing down enough to sit with the self, and I think that we know that, especially these teachings, it's endless. Like, it just goes for the rest of your life.
Yes.
You're not ever going to run out of teachings
Yes.
with yoga practice,
Yeah.
So yeah, like if you feel that you've mastered all the poses, I also think that that's impossible. Like, even, because like what, how it is. Like, once you get peacock, then there's another aspect of peacock, and then there's this, and like there's no end to that, and I feel like it's important that we talk about and share, like, because I do my best, and I've always from the get-go of becoming a teacher tried to really state and share all of the other aspects of yoga. And I feel like even though people I know now probably understand that more, let's just say, I still feel like it's not fully understood. That because I feel like, if I talk to someone on the street and I say I'm a yoga teacher, or maybe to my parents, they just, fitness maybe. Like,
yes.
right away, they just think of poses and they think of down dog, and that's it. And I would like to know maybe your take on, like, what are the ways to phrase it so that people understand just the expansion of all of that. And also, as teachers, because I've heard quite a few teachers that, their asana practice, like, changes or falls off completely and they feel really bad about it. And then I'm like, yeah, but you, like, started playing the harmonium, so, like,
you're practicing.
Yeah.
Well, like, one of the lineages that I follow is called Akhanda Yoga, and that means whole. And it's the idea that each practice that you teach has to have an element of these things to make it whole, which is philosophy, mythology, mantra, meditation, and asana. And it doesn't have to be full on with all of these things, but I think when you are trying to tell people what you do and they perhaps minimize it to just, oh, you teach adult Simon Says.
Yeah.
I think it could be cool to maybe be like, oh, I teach, like, physical movement and mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Or I teach, I don't know, something that doesn't just say yoga, because a lot of people's perception of yoga is what they see on, like, social media, or, like, what they see from the 70s.
Yeah, of course. Well, and the visual that follows the word of yoga instantly is that, and I think that that's probably okay. Like, it's fine, but I sometimes I feel very, I'm okay with it, whatever, but I feel slightly challenged by it, because I just feel, I don't know, it just feels unfortunate sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see why that's, like, just it's minimizing. It brings you to that place of, like, well, it's not just stretching.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, exactly. It's just like the poses.
I think if you maybe said something about mindfulness or something about meditation or so, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what people think when I tell them my job. It's almost like, just come see for yourself.
Right. And are you doing that? Are you teaching, these practices? Is this your full thing that you do? Like, the only thing that you do? And so where does that come through for you? How does it look? And where are all the places that you're doing that?
So I teach for Y Yoga. I teach at Jaybird in Yaletown, which is a very unique experience if you haven't tried it yet. I teach at Hollyburn, which is a country club. I teach at a little studio in West Van called Om Prem. And then I primarily run retreats as well.
Okay. Oh yeah, the retreat. And when I messaged you the other day about the retreats, because I said, hire me, I want to take photos, because I'm already taking photos at Nectar, obviously,
Yes.
And so I was like, I want to come with you and take photos. And then you were saying about spring, and I said, oh, I can't do that, but I'd be curious to know more about, the retreat and how that experience was for you now, recently, like coming off of it was last week.
Yeah.
And what those retreats look like, and that you want to do them in the times that you can have a fire to honor,
yes.
Fire ceremony, yeah.
So yeah, retreat is really incredible because, like I mentioned before, you can only unpack so much in like an hour or 75-minute class. But with these sort of experiences, you can really dive a little bit deeper, and there's a sense of community that's created and connection that's created with a group of sometimes strangers, or one other person, you came with another person. But for me as a facilitator, it feels so right to be there. And I don't know how to explain to people, like, when you feel like you're in the right place at the right time, there's a flow state.
Yeah.
And it's taken me almost 10 years to be there. But I finally feel like, as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a human, I'm in my state of flow. Mm-hmm. And this was my first time facilitating alone, and I got to do it my way and to curate something that was exactly how I envisioned it, how I would do it. And it was very successful.
And the most recent one that you led, what was it rooted in? Like, what was the the
theme was Root to Rise.
Okay.
And it was all about connecting to our own personal roots, so deep within us, who we are, our physical bodies, our roots as our hands, our feet, our breath, rooting into this amazing environment that we call home, and the connection to being close to home, because Bowen is so close to where I teach most of my public classes. And then finally is rooting to our ancestors through a ancestral healing fire practice that I facilitated and have done for a couple other retreats. So it was the idea that when we're truly rooted, truly connected, very grounded, is when we're able to flourish and expand and rise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you, I'm curious to know if the one in spring, does that also have that?
The public doesn't know about the one in spring.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. No, it's fine.
Well,
sorry, I probably should have said that, but no, it's fine.
I guess never mind. But when you came up with the theme of this one, is it something that comes up? Because when we're talking about the classes, for me, I just wing the classes, kind of like I go from intuitively what needs to happen. And when you're planning the retreat, does it come from that place as well?
Definitely, I leave room for intuition, especially when it's like physical practice or open conversation or things that happen. But I do go in with a bit of a framework, just because I'm facilitating quite a bit of time, whether it's 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. Like, I want to have people feel this ebb and flow of an experience. Yeah. So it's not huge. I'll be like, okay, this class, or my first class, is going to be like rooting to yourself. So you're going to connect with what brought you here. And we're going to do simple movements because you traveled here today. So it's going to be an easy peasy class. Yeah. Or, and then as we get into the thick of it, it's like, okay, I'm going to teach a class this morning that opens you up for your workshop that's later in the day. And your roots are going to be your hands. And we're going to connect to what it feels like to bring our hands to the ground. Or, those sort of things where it has a bigger picture, but I leave space that when I'm actually teaching the class, that I'm teaching to the bodies in the room once again, not to what I think it should be, but what it is in fact.
Well, something in my teacher training that they taled about a lot.
Where did you do your teacher training?
At Karma Teachers, and it was Peter Elmas and Lucy St. John, and Nikki Inglis, and it was quite good. Like Steve Fazzari came for one class, and it was great, But they talked a lot to us about being ready to drop whatever plan you have sometimes, you could come in with that piece of paper with your whole sequence, your whole theme, and then, I don't know, because sometimes, you'll get a student that's I can't do this, and that doesn't mean that you need to wipe out the whole plan, but it also sometimes makes you feel like, maybe I shouldn't even really, maybe that's just not the thing for today then, because this person or multiple people are saying nah, I can't do that because I just did this or something like that, and there's been a few times where I have to be very unattached to my plan because of the energy in the room, because of the energy of the people, because of what they say or feel.
Totally. Or you put out something and you can just kind of, you can feel those laser eyes burning the back of your head. And you're like, okay, let's rework this.
For sure. Yeah, and I feel like that scared me in teacher training a little bit, when they said, be ready to, ditch like whatever you create, because like you might need to switch it up, whatever. And I got scared. I was like, oh, what does that mean?
But isn't that good? Or aren't you glad that you learned that?
Yeah, I'm glad that they said that, because I think I would have felt very scared and confused, even more so with no preparation that exists.
Yes.
So,
and you have to be able to like think on the fly and make it look like you never planned to make that pivot.
Yes.
But you did. You had to.
And that's the thing too, because I found that once I was more, like right now I teach primarily just corporate yoga, and the students are in the class, they're not yoga people. They just want to stretch. They're not there for like Shiva. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they don't even know.
You gotta, yeah.
Like, and so like
you gotta meet them where they are.
You meet them where they are, and I really love it. Like I actually really enjoy it. But I always think like, oh, maybe when I wing it or switch it up, that they're gonna notice. And then what they end up saying is that it was one of the best classes.
Totally.
And it happens just like that when I dropped my plan.
Yeah.
And I just did whatever the day called for, or what they felt was accessible to them that day.
And we also, as teachers, have to learn, like, where I'm at with teaching, I've been at it for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
Like a few months shy of a decade.
Right.
When I first started teaching, I taught corporate. I taught kids yoga. I taught hockey camps, teenager boys. I taught everything just to get out there. And at a certain point, you learn something from all those experiences, which will benefit you in the long run. But hopefully, with patience and with consistency, you can teach what you want to teach. Yeah. You just have to
figure out what that is and where that lands.
And just be patient with the process.
Yeah.
Like I can sit back here now, like I said before, like I'm finally in flow state, but it took so much work
to get there and to understand what that was for you.
Yeah.
And also that might shift. Who knows? Yeah. Like 10 years from now, you might be only playing the harmonium and chanting mantra. Like
maybe I'll just be levitating around the world.
You might be.
Maybe. And that's okay.
It is.
Yeah.
It is for sure, Is there anything you feel that you want to share, that like any like resources, any information, anything that you feel is important, for anything that we didn't really talk about that you had an expectation that we might?
I get a lot of questions nowadays, right now, about people that are new teachers that want to get out there. And I get a lot of questions from existing teachers that want to take that leap of hosting retreats and leading retreats. And I think that it's important, if you're a new teacher, to just say yes to everything. It may take time to teach in that ritzy, nice studio if that's what you want. But just say yes to every opportunity. If it's your best friend's mom in her living room, say yes.
I did that. Yeah, I done a lot of those.
I did that.
Yeah.
If it's a group of elderly people, say yes.
Definitely say yes to that. Yeah, of course.
I think it's important. We have this like idea of what the industry is versus the reality of it.
It's got to be the best, right, Aaliya? It's got to be the best, and you need to teach at the best place with the best people and the fanciest thing. Like, there's so much of that. You're
touching sweaty people for a living. Like, the best is the best. The best is the best is the best.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Don't bite my computer. No. You've done this once before. I know you so well now. It always has to be the best, and I think that it's good to do that, because I remember like for the longest time, I kind of, well, not the longest time, but there was a time where I felt a little bit like corporate yoga. It's not like potent yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah,
been there, babes.
Right?
I know that.
And I was kind of like, man, like, I don't really like this because it's just kind of physical, and I can't
I'm just
really...
in someo's office space, and this guy just wants to stretch because he's been sitting at his desk. He doesn't want to hear about...
Not even close. I don't talk about, Hanuman, nothing, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like... And you don't use any of that language. Like,
No.
you know, you're not oming. You could. Like, don't get me wrong. But, like, the place I'm at, it just doesn't feel like that's the vibe, you know?
Totally.
And for the longest time, I think I felt a little bit frustrated with my just being with this corporate yoga thing. And then my I don't know, my feeling about it changed one day. And I just felt really grateful that I had something that kept my teaching alive, you know? Because I was like, oh, I've been here almost 3 years, and I've gotten so much better. I've grown so much just from this thing that really still, I think, is not rooted or like strongly yogic, you know?
Yeah.
And then when I came back to public classes at yoga studios, I realized I got so much better at teaching.
The consistency.
Yeah, you know? And so, like, I don't know. Like, I think it's good to say yes.
I think it's good to say yes, and it really refines your craft, and that's exactly the point.
Right.
It is not going to change overnight. You're not going to be the best version of yourself right after your teacher training.
Yeah.
You need to like just go out there and keep on doing it till you find your groove, your method, your way of displaying this wisdom.
Well, and it might shift depending on what you go through, because like even in our teacher training, like there was a lot of crying, like breakthroughs and stuff like that, you know, and and people don't think that happens. Like some people might not think that exists, you know, and of course you're you're a pretty raw like person when you come out of teacher training. Sometimes, you know, you finish and you're like, man, your whole like world has been rocked and you're just ripped right open and you're like, holy shit. Like, and then as you go through life, like I remember one of the advice that we received from Peter was to teach from the place that we were at, and he would tell us the story of how he lost his parents within 6 months of each other, and he like was so, you know, upset, like just had a hard time with that, obviously, and he would go and he would teach from that place. And that gave me a lot. I still have it in my head all the time when I'm feeling like I'm just upset, or I've got this problem, or I've got this thing or whatever, and I'm like, man, I need to utilize this pain and I need to teach from that place.
Yeah.
And to know that you can, you know, you don't show up if you can't do it, but if you feel like you can still show up for people and be really real and raw and honest, and that's your theme, is just this pain.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
I've had to teach from that place too, or when there's something that happens in the community. A few years ago, there was something really bad that happened in the Lynn Valley Center.
Yeah.
And I had to teach a class basically the following
day. And it's right there, too.
And it's right there.
Yeah.
And I think my theme was something like, you know, sometimes things happen that we have no control over and they can be so awful, but we're here together and let's like lean in on each other. Just the silence of being here together.
Yeah.
I think it's important to find that safe balance between being vulnerable and being open to people, but also like I try and synthesize it so that it's not all about me and my experience, but the essence of it, because that essence is universal.
Yeah.
And that's where I try to teach from, is like, we all experience grief, we all experience doubt, we all experience heartache.
Yeah.
But how can I take my experience and verbalize it in a way where people are like, wow, like, same.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it makes it applicable to the collective at that point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good chat.
Good chat.
It's been full.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing this time and space with me.
Totally. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for coming and sitting on my couch and being in presence with my cat who wanted to eat your computer.
A couple times. More than once. Yeah. Thank you.